it's Denise, and I'm here in my studio. I'm on my table, and as you may know, I've been working on a small series of 12-inch by 12-inch paintings that I'm calling this series Remnants. And it's mostly bits and pieces of papers and scraps. I'm adding rusted elements to them. You know, old things that I've had laying around that I just can't get rid of because they're just too cool. Too cool to get rid of. So I'm adding them into this series, and I'm also, along with that, doing some larger pieces. But I wanted to show you a quick little thing that I'm really, really loving. And that is all the cool little gouging that I can do with the Venetian plaster. Or really any plaster that you're using, but if you've been following me along, you know I'm playing with Venetian plaster. I'm loving the little skip marks that I get with it. I love the texture, I love the way it looks, but I'm also loving these gouges, and they're really fun to do. Once I've gouged these, I've gone into them with a darker paint and kind of worked it into the gouges and then wiped it off, and I'll show you how I do that. In this piece that I'm partially done with, I did the gouging and I put an azurite blue in it and then wiped it off. So it doesn't always have to be brown. But let me show you how I do that on a couple pieces I'm still working on. So this has got papers, it's got plaster laid down. I've done a little stenciling. It's still has a way to go, but right now is a good time to play with this plaster. Now, I have put a clear coat of my polyurethane over the plaster to keep it from soaking in any paint glazes I might put on top of it. So I did that first, and now I have a little tiny screwdriver. Whatever you have that does a good gouge, it needs to be something a little hard so you can really get in there and just scratch it up. And I don't do it over the whole thing. I just kind of do it in certain areas. And there you go. Then I take my brush. This is one of my favorite old faux finish brushes. This is badger hair. And this is just a blending brush. But I just take it out because I like to play with it. It feels so great. And it's a great little dusting brush. So I've got that. I've got my gouges. And now I want them to show up a little bit. So I take my ratty paintbrush that I use for doing my top coats. And let's see, I'm mixing a color. I'm using the white lid of a, I think this is cottage cheese, just to get, just to work with a color I might want. And I'm not making it too strong. I'm just gonna work it into those little gouges I just did. Maybe take a little blot of water. And while you're at it, just kind of go over anything else. I don't want to completely lose that green. Don't want to completely lose that little white, lose the white, but I might. And then just very simply wipe it all off. And you're going to get those cool gouge marks. And I like those. It might be a little bit stronger than I planned on, but I can work with that. I can lay paper over it. I can add another coat of plaster, which I may be doing, but now I've got a little bit more interest going on in the plaster. Oops. So there's one. Now I've got this one. I believe I already added some gouges in here when the plaster was wet. It seems to work much nicer when the plaster, it depends. This is a softer groove because the plaster was wet. You can also do it when the plaster is dry. Maybe I just want to do some little gouges right here. Don't want to completely lose that pretty green. That's a really pretty color. So maybe on this one, I just want to go in with something soft. So I could probably make something of that. Now the plaster that I used, the Venetian plaster I used for this particular board, has a lot of, it was a more textured plaster, and you can see it has a grain to it. So I like the effects of that as well. I'm gonna add a little bit more black over here. Maybe a little stronger. Now again, I have more to add to these pieces, but I wanted to get that in here before I went too much further. Another thing I could be adding in here is just if I wanted to do just some writing. Just anything that comes to your head, because you can't really see it. Just to show you the cool gouges, how to work that, and it's a pretty simple thing. You could, if you wanted to, you might be able to. Now again, this is the textured plaster. It's kind of hard to get kind of a swirly thing going. Let's see how this works. Now, this could be a little scary because this was just a practice board with my plaster, but this board does not have a top coat on it. So maybe this will be a good demonstration of what happens when you don't put a top coat on it. Really pretty color. But as you can see, it doesn't really come off very well because the plaster's porous, and now that color, the glaze that I put on, has gone down into the plaster. It's soaked right in, so I'm not going to be able to get that off, but I can make that work for me because I'm kind of liking that color. I'm just now putting the top coat, the polyurethane, on. And just working that in because now that will become my new base. And this practice board will now probably become one of my pieces. Now that I've got this much going on. And it'll have a nice cover coat that now seals that plaster. So anything I want to do, any washes that I want to do on top of it now will glide around on top rather than soak in. So once I let this dry, I'm going to come back and a little bit later and I'll do Let me see if I can scratch some of that off. And I'll do scratches on top of it then, but I'm even liking where this is going. So there you go. That's my scratches. And quick little lesson on how I gouge up my boards. Pretty fun. So stay tuned. I release this these small group, this small series. I believe I have 14 of them. And I'll put all that information down below in the description. That will be released to my email subscribers on December 9th and 10th. And it will be released to the public on December 11th, both online and in the studio open house at the 5 Arts Studio and Gallery in Liberty Station in Barrack 16, and that happens on December 11th. So that's a lot of data material I have here for you. You can find most of it in the description below. And thanks for watching. And I hope you do this and give me a thumbs up on your way out. That's really great. I really appreciate it. See you soon. See you on the next video.